Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Salary Research and Negotiation Workshop for the College of Nursing and Health Sciences. We are going to jump right in today. We have lots to talk about, and I want to make sure we get to everything. Just a couple of things for housekeeping. If you're joining live today, welcome. To make sure we have a clean recording for the folks who might be watching that replay. If at any time you have any questions, concerns, comments, anything at all, don't be afraid to utilize that chat feature or use the raise hand, and you can unmute yourself as well. For my folks who might be watching the replay but do have questions at any time, you're welcome to email me or schedule an appointment after today's sessions, and we can have a one-on-one chat and talk some more. So we're going to jump right in. If this is your first time interacting with USU Career and Alumni Services, my name is Logann Todd. I'm the manager of Career and Alumni Services here at USU. My job is really to help make sure that you feel comfortable, prepared, and confident to take those next steps after graduation. So, of course, today we're going to be talking about salary research and negotiation, but if at any time you need support with resume, cover letter writing, interviewing, looking for jobs, anything at all related to career, you can always come and see me while you're a student, but also after you graduate, you have access to me and my services for life. And you can schedule an appointment using my Calendly link. This will also be in my follow-up email. So anyone who registered for today's session should get the follow-up email by the end of today with a copy of the recording, any of the slides and materials that I showcased today as well. I want to start off this presentation by talking about advocacy because I think it's really important as you navigate these next steps in this process. You are your own advocate. There's no one going to be there supporting you through this process other than yourself and maybe a spouse or a family member that might be kind of there listening to you, but really you're the one interviewing, you're the one job searching, you're going to be the one negotiating. So I really want to just point out that knowing and understanding your worth, your value, the level of education, and what that means in the job market is important because it builds confidence. The more confident you are, the more knowledgeable you are to talk about your experiences and what they mean, you're more likely to have much more success in this process. So you're going to feel more motivated as you progress through, but it's also an opportunity to grow, right? Learn new skills, get more confident and comfortable with this process. And then you'll be even more confident going into the next negotiation phase after. But I think understanding your worth, your education, the value that you're providing is going to be really huge and a big component of this process. So we're going to kind of start and we're going to frame this workshop as if we've already gone through the interview process. We are given an offer. Okay, so important here that when you get that initial offer, that is not the final offer. I want you to look at that full contract, that full package. What are they really offering you outside of salary? We are going to talk about salary, but I want you to think about some other items as well. So vacation and sick time, PTO, right? These are things that you can negotiate outside of just salary. Signing bonuses are huge within healthcare. So think about that. What does that look like? How much is it? When do you get it? What are the qualifications? We're going to talk about that in a second. Healthcare benefits, right? Childcare reimbursement. These are things you might not think of immediately, but they are things that you can negotiate. If you're relocating, relocation assistance can be provided and negotiated as well. Further training or professional development stipends are pretty common. They will also pay for licensure, recertification. They'll pay for DEA licensure, prescriptive authority. So these are things to start thinking about. And once you see that salary, I don't want you to stop there. I want you to really consider the entire package and what they're willing to offer you. What are some other things that we can do and talk about in that process as well? So we're going to kind of break down each one. So in terms of salary, the key here is knowing what to expect ahead of time. Because if you go into this process, most of you are probably NP students and you're going in. This is your first nurse practitioner job out of school. You've been an RN for a while probably. So you don't really know what the salary is for NPs. Now, depending on your location, it can vary. So, I hear a lot of students that depending on your location, an RN or a travel nurse position might make more than an NP. It really just depends on your location, the type of practice you're going to be in, the type of specialty. So what we're going to do is we're going to do our research so that we're prepared if the employer says, what is your starting salary range or what are your expectations for salary? I want you to have a number in mind ready to go. So I do provide you a list of resources here for you to do some exploring, but I'm actually going to show you two today that are really great resources to check out and to bookmark. The first one is ONET Online. So ONET is not as commonly known, but it is a very powerful tool for locating salary based on location. So anyone who's tuning in live today, let me know if you're a nurse practitioner, we'll use that as an example. I want you to give me your location. Where are you located? Where are you looking for nurse practitioner positions? And I'm going to actually show you today what that salary is. So go ahead and drop a location in there, city, state. You can use a zip code, whatever works for you. What do we got here? All right, Irene says Seattle. Okay. So when you type in nurse practitioner, it'll pop up with some options. I kind of sped through that, so sorry about that. So up at the top here, you can type in nurse practitioner, and we can see here nurse practitioner pops up immediately. So this is just an overview of the occupation. You all know what a nurse practitioner does, but at the very bottom of this, you'll see a category for wages and employment trends. And so this is where we can get a little bit more specific. So Irene says Seattle, Washington. So we are going to look at Seattle. I'm actually just going to put in Washington for now, and then we can look at the graph and go a little bit further down. Let me bump this up a little bit so we can see it here. So as we go to this next page, it will give us the wage breakdown. So for Washington, you're actually going to see a little bit higher of a salary based on the average US. And so this is showing us the annual wages, but we do have the option to look at hourly. So if you're ever curious or you're looking at the job description and it provides one or the other, you can do some quick math, or you can always go here and look at the data live. So we can see here some more statistics, right? So in Washington, we earn a little bit more. And then if we scroll down, it actually breaks it up by location. So Irene said Seattle. So we're looking at this column here. And because Seattle is a much larger city, right, than a smaller town, we're going to see a higher salary rating. Now, for you as a new graduate, we would be somewhere between 10 to 25% quadrant. So you can realistically expect to have an annual salary between these two numbers. Now, it's not unheard of to definitely go in the median or go towards the top range, but these are usually for more experienced NPs or maybe folks who have a couple of years experience and then they're going to take on another position. So for you, realistically, Irene, I would expect somewhere within these numbers, but this is only one research tool. So we can kind of compare this with other ones out there. The other one I want to show you is the Occupational Outlook Handbook. So this is actually from the United States Bureau of Labor Statistics. The Census Bureau sends out information. They also look at IRS and tax reporting data to really kind of figure out these numbers. So ONET is great because it's still pulling information from here, but this is the direct source from the government. So we can see all I did was type in nurse practitioner here, and it loops them in with midwives and anesthetists. So take that as you will, but as you scroll down, you can kind of see more about salary information. If we just want to look at pay, we can see here, these are the median pay. So it doesn't give us that beautiful chart like on the last time, but you can see 129 is the median. And if we go back to ONET, so again, we're somewhere in between here. So either site is pretty good. I think use them both to get kind of a baseline for what you're looking for. But both of those are linked within these slides. So ONET and PayScale. Now, Glassdoor is another one. I'll briefly show you. Glassdoor is great because it shows real live companies, where ONET and the BLS Gov page are more like reported salary data from census reports. They're not like real people reporting salaries. So if I were to look up under salaries, I'll do practitioner and then Seattle here. One thing to note with Glassdoor is that you will have to sign up using email. That's the only downside, but you can see here for nurse practitioners in Seattle, we're a little bit higher in this range. So 134 to 187, which is kind of in between here, right? Still realistic data. But the good thing about Glassdoor is that these are real people who have reported their salary to Glassdoor. So you know that it's not outdated data. This is actually like updated pretty much daily at this point. You can see this was updated. The average salary was updated June 6th. But you can also filter by years of experience, right? So if you just want 0 to 1 years, you can see it goes down a little bit more. You can read some more information here about top paying companies, popular companies for nurse practitioner in Seattle. So then you can get an idea of types of employers that might be good options for you, Irene, in the Seattle area. Now, I know we've already connected privately, we've chatted about some options, but for the sake of this exercise, this is a great example. So Rebecca says Imperial, California. So I'll quickly look that one up and show you for California. And then I know Austin also put in Orange County, South Carolina. So we got California here. All right. You'll have to help me out because I'm not from the California area. So what large city or which one of these is the closest to Imperial, California? Let me know, Rebecca. Because it is not listed here separately. Or if you give me a zip code. Okay, that's true. Okay, so here we go. So kind of similar to Seattle's range here. So for you, Rebecca, we're looking somewhere in between here. And similarly, I can go on BLS. I can look at that data as well. But this is important because we're going to take this. We're going to have it ready to go for that employer so that we know if they lowball us, right? If we know that we should be expected to make more money, we can say, well, based on my research, based on statistics in the census, this is really the salary range that as a new graduate I should be paid. And so that will help you determine a lot of things, right? So if they do give you that offer and it is low, you can walk away because you know what you deserve and you know what you should be making. So Austin, we can take a quick look at Orange County, South Carolina real quick before we move on. Where's my S's here? Okay, I'm gonna put in your zip. Is 92683 for Orange County? No, that's California. Oh, I thought you said South Carolina. I'm sorry. Okay, well, here we go. So for your area, so you are way more than the average, but it is California, so everything is a little bit increased, right? And then if we scroll down, we can see a little bit more based on this data. So what are we looking at? We're close to Los Angeles area. So definitely, as you go up, it does get a lot higher in terms of the ceiling. But starting out, it is a little bit lower. I would say for you, I would aim a little bit higher just because the ceiling is a little bit higher and because you're in California. So definitely use this, use BLS, use Glassdoor as well. One more thing I will show you on Glassdoor. I know it's not relevant to salary per se, but let's just say we have, Kaiser is a large employer of our alumni, so I'll use that as an example. But if you, what's going on here? Hold on. Okay. So if I go to Kaiser's page, or you can look up the company that you're interested in, and you can go on their Glassdoor page. Like I said, this is real people reporting their experiences with companies. So anything on here is pretty reliable just because it is real interactions. So you can go under the salaries tab and filter through what type of position you're looking for. So obviously we're looking for nurse practitioner for this example. And then we can see here the salary range for nurse practitioner at Kaiser specifically. So we can look general, right? I showed you before on Glassdoor, we can look for the general salary range, but if we want to get more specific and look for what the salary range would be for a company, this is good because if you're going into an interview, you kind of know what to expect before you get an offer. And you can do that. Here's some other larger organizations too. For smaller practices, we might not have the same quality of data just because it is a smaller place. They might not even have a page on Glassdoor. So that's where we kind of need to lean on ONET or the BLS Gov page. You can also look at the interview page where people have reported their experience with interviews. So then you know what to expect. So you can again sort by nurse practitioner in here and only look at interviews for nurse practitioner jobs. You can get an idea of what to expect. And then under benefits, this is kind of similar to what we're talking about. You can get an idea of the types of benefits that they offer. You know, do they offer 401k? Yes or no? And then do they offer a match, right? So sometimes you don't get that information just looking at the human resources page on the website. This will give you a lot more insight to what those benefits look like. So that is my recommended resources for salary. I would definitely encourage you to do some research ahead of time. It doesn't take that much time, right? We just spent maybe 5 to 10 minutes looking at those. But for you, it's really important so that you have that information ready to go. So I'm going to jump back in here. Okay. So in addition to salary, we have other items related. So those would be incentives or bonuses. And like I said, in healthcare, these are very common, like a sign-on bonus, right? Or sometimes there's bonuses for working a certain number of hours, or, you know, it varies based on what we're looking at. So I want you to really think about these carefully. What do the bonuses require? How long do you have to work there before you get the bonus? Is there a certain number of hours you have to put in? Is there, you know, a certain length of time before you get the bonus? So really think about all of these things carefully because it does factor into that number. So maybe your starting salary is a little bit lower than what you're expecting, but that's because they have these bonuses and incentives and merit increases worked in. So think about that as well and kind of weigh out your pros and cons in that aspect. But sometimes there's also things that can cancel or void the incentives too that we need to look into as well. So really read that contract, that information carefully. And if it's not clearly stated, make sure you ask those questions. Moving forward to that full package, this is talking about PTO. So I will say healthcare providers and physicians like NPs do have very generous PTO offerings. They're usually given more paid vacation days than any other type of worker, which is great for you all, but it also means that you work really long hours, right? So think about that as well, weighing out the pros and cons. Think about how many paid vacation days do you get at the start of your employment, and then how do they accrue? Is it based on hours worked? Is it based on service? Like after 2 years you automatically get more, or is it the number of hours that you actually put in? How many sick days? Do they differentiate the two, right? PTO and sick days are different things at different companies. Sometimes they're all looped together and they're just time off, but sometimes they have different ways that you can use them. So you can't use a sick day unless you're actually sick. Sometimes they have personal days. So think about that as well, because if they give you, let's say 2 weeks, I know it's a very small amount of time, but if they give you 2 weeks, can that 2 weeks be taken at one time? Does it have to be taken only one day at a time? These are all really important things to think about, which I know probably most of you in your RN positions are already thinking about this, but it's still important when we consider the package as well, because you're essentially getting paid not to work. So when we think about getting more PTO days, that's more days off that we're still getting paid. So it does kind of factor into the final offer as well. And then thinking about what does this look like at the end of the year? If you don't use your PTO, does it carry over? Do you get it paid out? Those are some other options as well. Usually that money is really taxed. So we're also thinking about that. And then what is that process for filing time off requests? Like I said, can you use sick time if you're not really sick, or if it's an emergency and let's say your child is sick and you have to leave and pick them up from school? What does that look like? Do you have to take PTO? Is it flex time? So these are all really important questions to ask to really evaluate the workplace. And then similarly here with our schedule, what does the schedule look like? So for RNs, I know it's kind of all over the place, right, depending on where we are, but for NPs, I would say for the most part, it's a pretty traditional work time. So especially in family practice or urgent care, right? They're only open certain times of day. It's usually like an 8 to 5 or a 9 to 6 or something. And so that might be very different from the schedule that you're used to. So really thinking about what is that going to look like for you, and is that flexible? If you're used to working 12-hour shifts 3 days per week and having, 4 days off, what does that look like? Is that a possibility? Is that only sometimes? So really thinking about what your schedule is going to look like and if that's negotiable moving forward, because oftentimes it is. You just have to ask. So I know that's a lot to think about when you're evaluating a job offer. There's so many different components, and sometimes we might be in a position where we have multiple offers. And if that's the case, amazing. I'm so excited for you. But it's also really overwhelming because how on earth do we pick? What if they're both giving us the same salary, right? We need to look at these other items. So I do have this really great job evaluation template. I'm going to pop this in the chat. You can open this in Google Docs. You can also use this in Microsoft Excel. I'm going to actually open it up. We're going to look at it together. So this will help you really evaluate everything super thoroughly, probably a little too thorough, but it's important to look at all the options. So you can put in offer 1, offer 2, offer 3. You can even duplicate the columns if you want to. But you can see from this example here, so we have the base salary, then we have any of those sign-on bonuses or an annual bonus. We have our 401k. Do we have a match, right? How long after we work there are we 100% vested? Can we have an HSA? What are our contributions? Does the employer provide contributions for us? And then for our healthcare costs, right, breaking down medical, dental, vision. Sometimes we might not know this information ahead of time. So just depends on the employer, right? Because they might not give their premiums out and put it on the internet, but you can always ask the question because sometimes they will provide it as well. And then when it going further, right? So other health insurance, do they provide equity? Is there a wellness program? Sometimes they'll incentivize you for having a fitness membership or they'll pay for that. Tuition, sometimes they'll reimburse you for student loans. They might provide a cell phone. They'll pay your mileage. There's so many different components to think about, and it'll really help you figure out which is going to be the best bet for you. And it'll also help you figure out, again, if you're being lowballed, right? So you can have your multiple offers or different scenarios, and you can decide based on this template here. So that is available for you. I just put it in the chat, but you'll also get it in the slides. You'll be able to click this link, and it'll actually take you directly to that site we just looked at. So I mentioned quickly about the multiple offers. This is pretty common because obviously there's a nursing shortage, so they're always trying to get more NPs. So you might be in a position where you do have multiple offers. And as I said, that's really exciting, and I'm so excited for you. And that means that you're a good competitive candidate. But what I want you to do is ask for more time so that you can make a well-informed decision. I don't want you jumping into something because you feel rushed or stressed. I want you to really think about the offer before you accept it and make sure you negotiate. That first offer is not the final offer. We're going to do as much as we can to negotiate it. So use that spreadsheet, but I also want you to ask for support or ask for advice. So talk to your family, talk to a spouse, talk to your preceptors. I'm more than happy to chat with you about it and talk you through it, walk through it with you, and then negotiate if we need to. We should be negotiating anyway. It's always good to negotiate and ask for higher salaries, especially for women. I always encourage you to go the extra mile, but it's good just in any profession, regardless of your gender, to ask for more because you deserve it. And then what you want to do after that is make sure everything's in writing, but also communicate regularly. So if you ask for more money and you haven't heard back, I want you to check in regularly and see what's going on. Because sometimes maybe they take PTO days, someone gets sick, right? Some things might get lost. So always follow up and check in with this process. So we kind of covered everything talking about the full package, and now we're going to talk about some different scenarios. So how to ask for a raise or a promotion at your current company. So maybe you really love where you work and you just want to be promoted to a nurse practitioner. You just want to be moved into a new department. So We already talked about where to find our salary data because that's going to be important here. We want to present the data and research on what we deserve, but I also want you to come prepared with why you deserve a promotion or why you want a raise. You're completing a new level of education, right? A higher degree. You're getting a new board certification. You are qualified to do this job. So I want you to have all those materials ready. If you're at the end of your program in 597, you'll be putting together a portfolio. That portfolio is a perfect opportunity to use it in this case. Show them all the awesome things that you've been doing, and then have your salary information ready. Really showcase your contribution. So maybe highlight the different things or leadership opportunities that you've done in the current role and how those would relate to the future role. And sometimes this can be really scary because if we're asking for a raise or promotion, sometimes we might think that the employer might have the perception that we're not happy in our current job, but that's definitely not the case in this situation, right? We clearly love being here. We want to stay here. We just want a different position with our new level of education. So really reinforce why we love it here. Talk about being on the team, talk about the company, talk about specific details that really excite you about working here, and re-emphasize the reasons why you've earned it, right? You've got a new degree, you're more educated, you're ready to move up and take on this new role. The worst case scenario is that they say no, right? You still have a job. So know that there's tons of options. And if, a raise or a promotion isn't possible in your current position, maybe it's time we move elsewhere, because as I show you, we already know what we could be making somewhere else. And in most cases, we can make more elsewhere. So think about that. If you really love where you are, you kind of want to stay, but you want to move into an NP position, there is a possibility to do that. So in both cases, regardless if we're looking for a new position or we're staying in our old one and we're just looking for a raise or a promotion, here's some things that we do not want to do or say when we're negotiating. So we never want to disclose what we made previously. Even if it was more or less, it doesn't matter. It's not their business. We don't need to share what we made salary-wise anywhere else. We're only going to focus on what we could be making in the new position. So very rarely do I have a student come back and say that, hey, the employer asked for what I was making previously. If this is the case, you can just kind of reroute that conversation and say, that salary range reflected a lower level of education. I'm really interested in focusing on my future, and the salary range that I expect for this position would be XYZ, and kind of throw the ball on their court. So we never want to disclose that, but we also don't want to disclose our current financial situation in any way. So saying things like, I need more money, or I can't afford my expenses, so I have to make more, or I need this raise, because it kind of puts us in a vulnerable position where the employer could kind of take advantage of that. So it can expose us. We don't want anyone to think about the possibilities there. And so we also don't want the manager to be concerned with your ability to manage a budget or, be in a managerial position or an administrative position either. Because if you personally saying something like that could disclose that maybe you don't have the best financial situation, they wouldn't want you being in charge of other people, if that makes sense. So we don't want to disclose either of those. We don't want to make any demands or threats. This really should be a casual but professional conversation. It should be just, like I said, very conversational. It's not any situation where we're going to be aggressive, because that's not going to be a good success case for us. It's not going to be positive. We also don't want to undervalue our work. So that's why at the very beginning of this workshop, I talked about advocating for ourselves and the importance of that. And if you have the ability to discuss yourself in a way that sounds professional, but also backing it up, you're going to be a lot more successful in this process and have a lot more confidence doing it now, but also doing it in the future. And we're going to do our research. We're going to come prepared. We're not going to go in empty-handed, because we did our research and we're ready to go. And we're ready to hopefully get a raise, promotion, or a new job. Now, for what we do want to say, though, some different types of language or how you could potentially bring up the conversation with your employer. So I'm really excited by the opportunity to work together. This does two things. So one, it does not confirm or allow you to accept the position. It's just showcasing your enthusiasm. And so, like I said, number 2 is enthusiasm and gratitude. So you're thanking them for their time, but you're also showcasing, hey, I'm really interested in this and I'm going to take some time to look at it. Now, if they come back and they, really give you that lower number, we did our research, we know what we, should be making. You can say things like, based on my research, or, hey, I was looking online, I was really comparing it to the government average, and I saw some other reports from previous employees that this is somewhere around the range that I was making. Is that possible? And then similarly situated employees, right? That's where Glassdoor comes in, because we can see real data reported by real people working at the company. So you have that reported data ready to go, and you can say, hey, this is what I'm seeing online. So is that number flexible at all? And as I said, sometimes they might give you a low offer at first, but that number is always negotiable. Even if they say it isn't, it always is. And you can say, again, if they give you that low number, you can say, well, I'd be really a lot more comfortable if we met somewhere here, or I'd be more comfortable if you offered to pay for my recertification every 5 years, or my DEA license, right? So you can say things like that. And then the last one we should be saying regardless is, do you mind if I take a couple days to consider your offer? Sometimes they are pinched for time, right? They're really trying to get someone in. And so a couple days might not be possible. They might come back and say, well, I only have 24 to 48 hours to close this application, so I need an answer. So then take the time that they give you, but always ask for the time anyway. A lot going on today. We talked about salary research, we talked about negotiation, we talked about where to find that information and data. So I have everything kind of summarized in this guide. I'm going to put this guide in the chat. This is also on the Career and Alumni Services website. So you can download this and check it out. This has everything that I kind of talked about today. There's some couple other tips and tricks in there for you in terms of timelines, but for the most part, it does a good job of summarizing it all together. So some final tips here are, if we're negotiating, we're going to do our research, we're going to come prepared, right? I don't want you to go into this empty-handed. There's so many resources out there that'll give you that data. So I want you to go in and find it. Make sure to have everything in writing. So when you're negotiating this process, if you're on a phone call and you talk to someone about something, send a follow-up email summarizing that conversation and the bullet points that you talked about that you're potentially negotiating. We're going to read through that contract thoroughly with a fine-tooth comb. We're going to make sure everything is good for us, but also good for the company. We want to make sure that if something is missed in there, we go back and forth and make sure it gets put into that contract, and don't sign anything until it's perfect. So it is an overwhelming process, but it doesn't have to be. You have a lot of support people that are here to work with you. I'm happy to connect and chat with you about the process, but please don't do this alone. Always chat with somebody or get some final feedback before you jump in. So I want to show you real quick on the Career Resources website. So if you go to the main university website here, under the Students tab, I am the second option. So Career and Alumni Services will pop right up. There's a bunch of resources on here, but I'm going to show you under Career Resources. There's actually an entire section just for salary and negotiation. So there's that salary negotiation guide. There's that job offer evaluation template. And then I have a bunch of other resources here. So what not to say when negotiating, right? I have an entire article talking about that. And I know I only have one slide about it, but there's a lot more information out there. ONA is linked on there. The Occupational Outlook Handbook, the BLS Gov website is on here. Salary.com I didn't talk about, or pay scale, but those are really great resources for you to just get some further information. And then there's also some other information too about interviewing, job search tools, LinkedIn. So definitely check out the website under the Students tab and Career Alumni Services. But that's it for me today. I'm going to drop a couple other things in the chat. I'll hang out here for a couple minutes if anybody has any questions or they need anything. But otherwise, I really hope that this was helpful today and you learned some more information about negotiating salary and finding some good data points to go off of. If you found this helpful, I would love to hear it. I'll put that link in the chat for the feedback form. It'll only take a couple seconds, but it is important to me. If there's other topics that you want me to present on or share or provide resources for, definitely put that in the form too, because I'm always looking for other ideas to share for workshops. So I appreciate you for hanging out today, and I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day. Happy Halloween tomorrow if you celebrate, and I'll be in touch soon with a recording in the follow-up email.